Texas Tech, the Matador Club. We've talked about this on Big 12 Squads before with Chris Level, who hosts Locked On Texas Tech, a big figure there for the Red Raiders. They are exploding right now. Their NIL is crazy. They just paid a softball player $1 million, reports say, to go play for them. That is really good. And now there's a new ploy for and here's why it matters for the entire Big 12. There's a new ploy amongst the Matador Club to raise even more money for the university because revenue sharing is coming. So a random, faceless, nameless person on Twitter, that's not meant to be a dig, by the way. They just tweeted something good. Red Raiders, the Matador Club needs your help. We have a short window to secure our men's basketball for next year before it goes to revenue share. And immediately this tweet gets traction because we're moving into an era for Big 12 schools where it's not NIL anymore as your focal point. Instead, it's revenue sharing and paying, namely football and basketball players, a lot of money from your university's pocket. I know most people don't understand what revenue sharing is. If I had to explain it to you like you were 5, I probably couldn't. I mean, you're base.
You would have to be at least 13.
If I could try, like you are just an employee of your university, but you make a whole lot of money. I mean, $23 million that universities have to pay their student athletes every year. And there are some Big 12 schools that just can't afford that. Baylor's committed to it. Iowa State can't. Texas Tech may not know. Kentucky, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, they're going to be okay. But now NIL matters so much more because revenue sharing is about to put the SEC and the Big Ten, the halves of those leagues, in a whole nother galaxy from a good portion of the Big 12.
Yeah, and so here's where it becomes interesting in these schools that can opt out or opt into it. Because there are some that might not even want to touch the revenue sharing because they have such great collectives. Now, I don't know if that encapsulates any of the Big 12, and this is why this Texas Tech thing is fascinating.
Also, idiot. If you do that, no. You can't be like, we'll lean on the mom and pop. We'll lean on our booster club over there. No revenue sharing for us.
But if you're Tennessee and Ohio State, it's like that's more than just a booster club. Like that's almost like TV rights deal. Like that's insane money coming in. This is why like even BYU. I know they can put together one hell of a collective. It's I don't think worth it for any of the Big 12s to do it, but Texas Tech is a very fascinating one with the money that they've been able to put together the last couple of years. Is that sustainable in a 5 or 10 year model or whatever it is? And then more interesting is that Texas Tech, Kirby Hocutt, is one of the only athletic directors / athletic programs that's actually talked about the revenue sharing and how it's going to break down. You know, they're saying like, oh, we're going to put X amount towards football. I think they said 74% towards football or something like that. It's a pretty big number. So they're one of the only ones that have actually come out and said, yeah, no, we like this. And here's how we're going to do it. Here's how it's going to break down. But I think what you're going to see most with this revenue sharing is just, you're going to find very few schools that are everything schools, right? Like, I mean, most of these schools are going to see the money is being made in football. The Big 12 is wide open in football, which will certainly go towards one way or the other. Yes, you can.
Controversial here.
Yeah.
There are no everything schools. There are football, basketball schools.
Sure.
There are football schools. There are basketball schools. Football, basketball. There are zero. And here's where I get here's where it gets tough. Because 74% is going to football. You look at the softball team, at the men's tennis team, the cross-country team, and to be honest with you, in my time in media, those are the coolest coaches and players to hang out with. Those are the ones who aren't pricks. And
True. They're
not going to get as big of a chunk of this, but also that quarterback is the reason that your Shedeur Sanders is part of the reason Colorado and the city of Boulder are having an economic boom right now that they've never seen before. Molotov Khrushchev on the men's tennis team, elite, like number 3 player in the country, and he's going to get his bag in the IPA or the CPA or whatever
it's called. Yep.
Whatever it is. But in revenue sharing, it does make sense to me that an athletic director would say, you know what? Most of this is going to go to football because the lights are on everywhere else because of this sport.
Yep. And that's why the Texas Tech thing looks like the model, man. 3/4 of that revenue is going to go towards football. And I don't think anyone would complain, even if the men's basketball team goes to the Final Four. It's like that's just where it is. And it's also for some of these schools like a Tech historically that has not had a ton of success in a lot of sports. And they're like, we can buy our way into kind of the elite for football. SMU does it on a couple different levels. They did it to get into a conference, and now they can do it again. And they don't even have baseball. Like, they don't care. It's going to be interesting with these Big East schools in basketball. You know, the Marquettes and the St. John's and the Villanovas of the world. Villanova's got football, but 1AA. You know, so like this is going to be fascinating how these schools break it up. And I think like, not to keep inflating their tires here, but I think Texas Tech is going to be a very interesting case study for a lot of other schools. You know, it's a public school, but it's not huge. They actually have operated in the past a lot like a private school in terms of their athletics and athletic funding. You know, Baylor and TCU, those are two schools that won't think twice about it. They're going revenue sharing. They're not sticking with collectives only. And that'll be interesting to see how the private schools can work out in a major conference with this revenue sharing. But I think Texas Tech is going to be a case study for a lot of teams, man. It's going to get real tricky after April.
I called with a coach on a private school staff recently. I was like, man, just walk me through from your perspective what any of this means. And he's like, all I know is we have to. There's no maybe we do revenue share, maybe we do a portion of it. It is if you're going to take athletics seriously, and you have for the past few years, like a Baylor has when it comes to like the Fudge Center that's just been built. I mean, donors are pouring money into the university. If you've been taking it seriously, you're going to piss all that money away if you don't opt into revenue sharing and opt in full. Syracuse said no to NIL. We won't do NIL. And somehow it kind of worked out for them last year. They won, 9-10 games in football. But it's not one of those deals. If you opt out of revenue sharing or you aren't at a full revenue share, if you're Iowa State and you say, hey, we can't do the full $22 million, we can do $10 million, you are going to lose. But yeah, you'll get the 2-star who went to Des Moines North, but you're going to lose any legitimacy in college athletics.
Yes. I think they would probably all know that, but you never know. I mean, it is, I think Iowa State's a good example of a school that's like, hey, you know, we've got a great head coach and he's not going anywhere. And he made something out of nothing for us for years. He can do it again. We really like basketball here too. They need a little bit more financial help. We'll try to, no, like if you want to compete in this, you've got to have it going towards football, and they're
poor, man. Like,
correct.
It sucks. Iowa State is their athletic director is told, he's like, but guys, we're poor over here. Someone help, please. They had to cancel push back two different building projects in their athletics department because they're poor. And it sucks. They shouldn't be. And I don't know, like, remember like Arizona reported they were $800 million out in petty cash or something wild.
It's like the beginning of a bar rescue episode. They're like, we are $600,000 in debt. We are losing $10,000 a month. Who's at Iowa State stealing ticket money? I don't know. But I hope Larry needs to monetize that Twitter account, man.
I hope for those schools, give them the blue check that here soon they can figure out the revenue sharing over NIL. Cam, where can more people find your work?
That's the stretch. Locked on Baylor. We're going to have some Scott Drew discussion this week. We're going to see this is like a day-to-day thing, monitoring who's in, who's out of this NCAA tournament business.
Mm-hmm.
We're also got plenty of college football or Big 12 football previews coming up in the next couple of weeks. And at Real Cam Stewart on Twitter, moderately funny, it's been said.
Honestly, Baylor as a 3-seed or higher sucks, like hard. Baylor as a 9 seed, give it to me.
Look out.
Unless they play a Big East team round one, because they're going to get ish rocked.
Last week's projection had them against UT 8-9.
Oh, fun. I can do that.
Anything more perfect than that?
I can do that. That'd be Rodney. How is UT still in it?
They've been hot, man. They've been hot.
Just lost to Arkansas at home.
Hopefully just hot enough for Rodney to keep his job.
Yeah, as long as they want to keep him.
Yes.
Shaka Jr. over there. It's working out real well. This has been an Always Will Be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.